Alright, so I tried to continue along with the map that I already started, right? And it came out alright as far as... this is probably the best that I've done, personally, but it is definitely still trash. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to, hide everything and make a new layer. And I'm just going to talk about the techniques that he uses in this particular chapter. So, let's get started again. Again, this chapter talks about mountains, forests, rivers, and water. So I'm going to start off with high peaks and mountains and such. The technique that he demonstrates here is this technique where you're following your mountain range along a thin line. Looks stupid right now, but you're gonna get it in a second. I prefer to think of it as like a three-dimensional thing, right? This is X and Y, and then this is Z. So you're kind of bringing your mountains this way, and this line is probably somewhere like 1 mile up. It's 1 mile in the air. And then your job now is to trace down the side of this a mile down. Does that make sense? So, just going to draw your mountain range. It can be any shape whatsoever. This is where all of your peaks are going to rest. Well, not all of them, but this is going to be like the general idea of where your peaks are going to rest. So, mine's going to look like this. And you're going to bring up... it recommends in step 2 to start in the middle of your line. So, bring this peak down. And then bring this peak down. Okay? And then you're going to grab another point and bring it down there, and then bring it down there, and then this is all perspective from that point. So you've got if your 3D axis like this, this is X, this is Y, and this is Z. You're looking at it in kind of an isometric view. So bring it down like this. Thank you. Bring it down like that. You're gonna bring this down like this. Bring this down like that. There's no real guideline on what to do for your shapes of the mountains. Just remember that mountains typically look like this. He recommends using a V, but upside down, or a M. I've already made a mistake because you're supposed to erase this line later, but I didn't put it in a layer of its own, so I'll work around that. But yeah, they're mountains. They roll. They come off of this peak and roll off in another direction. So bear that in mind when you're doing this, that your mountains are supposed to have depth. Obviously, if you're coming from this direction, this way, the foremost mountains over here are going to overlap this way, So, when you're drawing stuff like this, it says in the book to start from the middle and then draw left and then draw right. So I am going to draw right, but then I'm going to also draw right again. So down here, I'm going to draw a little one and then get, a little bigger as I go. So I'm basically hiding the peaks, the bases of the other mountains behind the one in front of it, So this is your mountain range, right? If you can see it, it kind of looks like this is where all of my bases are. And on this side, they're kind of hidden over here and they come around. Right? And then from the top, this would probably look like this, from the top, but this isn't from the top. Top would be X and Y. We're looking at it from X, Y, and Z in kind of like an isometric view. Okay, and then just kind of even out, roll out your mountain at the end. So yeah, that's my mountain range. That's step 1, step 2, and step 3. So step 1 is to just start your peak line like this. Step 2 is to draw a mountain in the center, and then step 3 is to build out after that, and then roll off at the ends. Step 3 kind of also includes adding little sub-peaks and little tiny like in-between peaks and stuff that don't actually sit along the line. So you can take your time doing that. Sometimes less is more, sometimes it's not, so you gotta use your best judgment here. I think that right here I'm gonna put another peak right in the middle so that my thing comes in like that now. Alright, so here we go. So this is my little mountain range right there. Next, you're going to erase your guideline. Like I said earlier, I'm a dumbass and I didn't do that right away, so there. Alright. That's not perfect, but it's good enough to work. The next step is to define some mountains with these little contour lines that kind of, pull out the shape of the mountain. You're going to basically trace up the mountain in a way that you're going to use to define its shape. So obviously your mountains are going to be, they're cones. So your mountains are going to be cones, right? In a way. They've got like a circular base that comes up to a point at the top. Oops. So you're going to trace from the base to the top, right? And if you do it right, it kind of gives the illusion that this has some rotation to it and stuff. I obviously sucked right there. That was a bad example, but you're going to use that principle to trace down the bottom of your mountains. When you do this, you're basically saying this mountain is a mountain. It has some depth and there's some ridges that come on down this mountain, right? And I would recommend that you bolden up these lines a little bit so that you can differentiate between what's actually a mountain and what's just a little line that you're drawing. Great. So yeah, you're just going to draw like little fine lines that come down and give some dimension to your cone-shaped mountains. Now if your mountain is, let's say, a peak right here, like a ridge, a little sub-peak, then you can draw up to that peak like that, and then just draw in a different orientation away from it, Another technique that he doesn't talk about for like until a lot longer on in the chapter, I don't know why he doesn't bring it up here, but another technique is when you've got like your mountains like this, you add a third thing like that, and then only this side gets the thing. And it's kind of like a cross-hatching, Like this side is in the shadow, and then you can bring out little peaks and stuff like that. I don't know why he doesn't tell it to you like right now, because I feel like that's a pretty useful tactic for shading in your mountains, but he doesn't, so I'm going to bring it up again when he talks about it. But yeah, you can kind of see that like it implies that the sun is over here, and then obviously the shade is over here. But yeah, I'm just following the book in the order it's presented. But once you're done, another thing I've noticed is he doesn't really say it, but he doesn't go all the way to the top. He kind of pulls it back from right here. So you could do that too if you'd like to. I just don't really have a rationale for it because he never says why. If you were to add snow to the top of it, like a little snowy peak like that, I could get it, but he never says it, so it's just left to assume. So yeah, if you're looking for some inspiration or some further guidance on what I mean by draw these lines down, so the book has a lot of really good material in here. If you just buy the book, I'm sure that you'll understand what he means. I'm going to shill this book hard until people fucking buy it. When you buy it, leave an Amazon review, tell them I sent you. Yeah, so tricky peaks and stuff like this, just kind of trial and error. You look at it, you draw it. If you don't like it, you erase it, you try again. Alright. Good. Good, 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 good. And then after a while, you can kind of speed draw it. And just pull these lines out of nowhere. Great. So, now we're kind of seeing a mountain range a little bit. If you can open up your mind to just give me this. No. Next part is to add little hills around your mountain ranges. The hills kind of make it so that when you're looking at it from the side, it's not just like, hey look, a mountain. It's kind of like, hey look, a mountain, and it kind of like levels out into, you know, the area around it. Yeah, so this video is like super long. I'm going to split it up into different sections because part 2 is kind of big. It's got mountains, and then hills, and then rivers, and then lakes and stuff like that. So I'm going to cut it off here. We'll call this part 2, part 1. Or episode 2, part 1, and then I'll bring out the rest of them as they come. But yeah.